Have you ever made a pop up card that looks impressive but is actually super easy? Because today I'm showing you a DIY pop up bridge card that comes together with just a few basic supplies, and chances are you already have everything you need in your stash. Now, this card design is one of my absolute favorites because it's quick, beginner friendly, and incredibly versatile. You can dress it up or keep it simple. Use dies, stamps, stencils, or even leftover scraps. No fancy tools required. As we work through this card, I'll show you how the structure comes together step by step, along with a few easy tips to make sure your pop up folds perfectly every time. And if pop up card sounds intimidating, don't worry, this one is not. Once you make it once, you'll want to recreate it for birthdays, holidays, and pretty much every occasion. So grab your cardstocks, pull your favorite supplies, and craft along with me. And be sure to watch till the very end because I'll be sharing a fun idea for customizing this bridge using different elements from your stash. Hello, friends. I'm Revati, and welcome back to my crafty space. I'm going to start by building the base for our pop up bridge card, and this is where the structure of the card really comes together. For my card base, I'm using a piece of cardstock that measures 10 3/4 inches by 5.5 inches. I would definitely recommend using a heavyweight cardstock for this project since this card has a pop-up element. A sturdier cardstock will help the mechanism hold its shape really well. It also makes a big difference if you plan to display this card standing up because it keeps everything nice and stable. Next, we will create the pop-up mechanism by adding a few score lines. Now, these score lines are very important as they allow the card to fold and pop up correctly. On both sides of the card bases, I'm going to score at 1 1/4 inch, 2 1/4 inch, and 3 1/4 inch. So I have three score lines on either side of this card base. Once the score lines are in place, the folds will naturally form the bridge structure, making it easy to pop up and stand out when the card is opened. Take your time with this step and make sure that your measurements are accurate. It really helps the finished card look clean and professional. I will simply turn around the cardstock and create the score lines again on the other side of the panel, exactly like I did on the first side. So again, I'm scoring at 1 1/4 inch, 2 1/4 inch, and 3 1/4 inch. So we have basically 6 score lines on this entire panel. Now that our score lines are in place, I'm going to start folding along each of those score lines. I like to go back and forth, creating a zigzag or Arcadian fold on both sides of the cardstock. This step really helps bring the pop-up mechanism to life. Now take your time here and make sure each fold is nice and crisp. You can either use a bone folder or just your fingers, whatever you're comfortable with. I prefer using my bone folder. Now once it's done, you'll see the zigzag pattern. It's more like maybe a W or a M shape pattern you get. Now once both sides are folded into that zigzag shape, this is what you end up with. You already see how the structure starts to form with that pop-up sections on each of those sides. This is the base of our bridge, and from here the rest of the card will come together easily. Well, what if I told you that the bridge pop-up card is already complete? Well, the structure is done and now comes the really fun part. All we have to do is decorate. At this stage, you can start bringing your card to life using beautiful pattern papers, add some fun focal point die cuts, add an embossed or stencil background, and finish it off with a beautiful sentiment of your choice. And this is exactly why I mentioned at the very beginning that this is one of the easiest and quickest interactive cards that you can create. Once the base is ready, the possibilities are endless. You can easily change up the look by switching out the papers, stamps, or dies and even use the same design for any occasion. Now, this is one of those cards that not only makes the recipient smile when they open it, but also a joy to create as a card maker. It's simple, versatile, and so satisfying to put together, and that's why it's one of my absolute favorite designs. To decorate the card, I decided to pull out one of the gorgeous pattern papers from Your Paper Insider box number 14. I absolutely love the floral design on this paper. It is such a soft, subtle hint of pink paired with those delicate floral details that adds so much elegance without overpowering our card. Now, this is a very lightweight paper and it's called Dusty Rose Yuzenshi Shogami paper. Well, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The texture and the softness of this paper make it perfect for layering and adding visual interest to our pop-up design. Now, I have cut three panels from this paper. The larger one measures 4 by 5 1/4 inches. Since once you assemble this pop-up card, it will be a standard A2 size card. And this panel will serve as the background for our pop-up window. The two thinner strips measure 1 by 5 1/4 inches, and these will be adhered to the flaps of our bridge to tie everything together. Now, because this paper is so lightweight, I didn't want to use any of that liquid glue as it could warp the paper or show through the finished cut. Instead, I'm using double-sided tape to adhere all of these panels securely onto the card base, keeping everything neat, clean, and flat. Now, if you're someone who really doesn't enjoy using pattern paper on your card backgrounds, you can absolutely switch things up here. An embossed panel or even a stenciled background would work beautifully with this design as well. Now, you'll also notice that I cut all the three of these panels slightly smaller than the actual card base. I like leaving a thin white border around the edges. It adds a nice clean frame and gives the card a more polished and professional look. For me, that little bit of white space really helps the design breathe. Cutting the panels to the exact same size as the background or the flaps would work too, but I personally love how the subtle border elevates the overall design and look of the finished card. With that, our pop-up base is complete. Now we need something to connect both of these flaps together and create the bridge. This is what allows the center panel to pop up beautifully when the card is opened and, well, still fold flat so it fits perfectly inside an envelope. Now, traditionally, you could use a simple strip of cardstock to form the bridge, and that works great. But today, I'm going to show you a fun alternative technique that adds a little extra charm and personality to your card. Instead of a plain strip, I'll be using die cuts to connect both our flaps. Not only do they hold the structure together, but they also become a part of the design, turning the bridge into a decorative floral focal point rather than just a functional element. Now, I chose some of these absolutely gorgeous floral dies by Simon's Stamp. I had two in mind, but I ended up using just that one. I'm using the Elegant Blossoms branch dies by Simon's Stamp, which include these beautiful branch details along with two delicate floral elements. I went ahead and I cut all of these pieces using heavyweight white cardstock. And well, this is a single piece die, so I personally like to cut everything together from white cardstock and then add color later. That said, you could absolutely switch this up and use any colored cardstocks you like, whatever works best for your project. Now, to make coloring easier, I placed all of the die cut pieces on my ultra sticky mat so nothing moves around. For the floral petals, I used a very soft mix of peach and pink tones, which I felt tied in beautifully with our subtle pink in the background paper. For the stems and the leaves, I combined greens and browns to keep everything looking natural and balanced. I'm using my little tiny mini ink blending brushes to get that detailed coloring on just the centers of the floral petals. I'm not coloring the entire petals, just from the center, adding flickering motions towards the outside of the petals. I did the same with my leaves as well. On the surface of the leaves, I have a lighter shade of green, and on the base of each of those leaves, I have the darker shade of green. And for the stem, I used two shades of browns. As always, I will have all the colors and supplies I used linked in the description box below in case you'd like to recreate this same exact look. Next, I used tiny drops of liquid glue to start assembling my flowers. Now, because the stem is so thin and delicate, I decided to layer it up using two additional pieces of stems that I die cut using heavyweight white cardstock. This gives the stem more stability and helps it hold its shape when the card is open. Now, for now, I'm not adhering any of the flowers to the stem. I want to make sure everything lines up perfectly. I place the stems back into the pop-up card, and you'll notice I have my grid transparency sheet laid on top. This really is helpful because it allows me to check the alignment and prevents any glue from accidentally getting on the card itself. Once I'm happy with the placement of both the stems and the flowers, I will carefully glue the flowers at strategic positions on my stem. This ensures that when the bridge opens, everything is perfectly aligned on the flaps and sits beautifully within the pop-up structure. Once my blossoms are ready, the next step is to adhere the parts of the floral elements that overlap with the flap to our bridge. Now, this is the part that really brings the pop-up to life, making the flowers appear as though they are floating across the card. Now, you could simply glue the flowers directly onto the flaps and that would work just fine. But if your card needs a little extra support, especially for delicate elements like these thin stems, you can add a thin strip of acetate behind your flowers. Now, I chose to do this placing a narrow acetate strip behind my flowers. It's practically invisible, but it gives the flaps a little more structure and keeps everything stable when the card is opened and closed. Now, this step is optional, so feel free to skip this if your design feels sturdy enough on its own. I applied small amounts of liquid glue along the edges of the acetate and carefully tucked it behind the flap opening. Be sure that the acetate sits on the flap itself and not on the innermost zigzag layer of the pop-up structure. That way, it won't interfere with the folds or the pop-up action. Now, once the acetate was in place, I added tiny drops of glue to the edges of the flowers as well that overlap with our flaps. This ensures that the floral elements stay perfectly aligned while giving the card a professional look. Now, usually when I'm working with any kind of plastic or acetate material, I prefer using double-sided glue. But in this case, I'm using liquid glue because it definitely gives me some wiggle room to make sure that my acetate is in place and it's exactly where I want it to be. You'll see me fiddling a bit with the flowers. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but this is what works best for me. Finally, to make sure everything stays in place while the glue dries, I placed a few magnets over my flowers. Now, this is a little hack that works beautifully for delicate elements. It holds the pieces firmly without leaving any marks or flattening the pop-up. Once the glue dries, the flowers will stay perfectly aligned to the flap and the bridge pops up beautifully every time. While I let the glue on the flowers dry, I moved on to a little fun embellishment, which is this beautiful dragonfly. Now, this is the Whirl Dragonfly die set by Simon's Stamp, and I cut it using Wisteria Purple Vellum, which was part of the new box number 14, and white glitter cardstock, which is from one of the previous releases by Your Paper Insider. Now, this combination gives the dragonfly a very soft, delicate shimmer while still adding a little sparkle to our card. To attach it, I layered the dragonfly on top of the floral element. I tucked one set of the wings under the leaves and added tiny drops of glue. This not only holds the wings securely in place but also gives support to the very delicate vellum wings so they don't bend or tear. This little dragonfly adds a playful, whimsical touch to our bridge card and complements the flowers beautifully while still keeping the pop up structure functional and sturdy. I just love how slowly and effortlessly this card is coming together. We have our beautiful floral background, a fun focal point with the layered flowers, and a delicate little dragonfly adding just the right whimsical touch. I'm really in love with the colors in the set. The soft pink, peaches, greens, and purples all complement each other so beautifully. One of my favorite features about this design is that even though it looks intricate and delicate, this card is actually made flat and will fit into your standard A2 size envelope and still pop up perfectly when you open it. Now, all that's left is to add our sentiment. You could definitely use a die cut sentiment, but I chose to stamp one of my absolutely favorite sentiments on a strip of white cardstock and adhere it on both the flaps. And just like that, our card front is complete. Next, we need a little space to write a personal message. To do that, I created a small note card that fits neatly on the back of the card. I secured it in place using double sided tape so it won't move around. To make the design cohesive with the rest of the card, I decorated the front of the note card with the same pattern paper that we used for the main card front. I cut it to fit perfectly, leaving a thin white border around all four edges. This ties the note card in with the rest of the design and keeps the look polished and professional. And just like that, our pop-up bridge card is complete. I absolutely love how this one turned out. The soft floral background, the layered flowers, the delicate dragonfly, and of course the sentiment, everything comes together so beautifully. This card was not only easy and quick to make, but it is so functional. It folds flat to fit into a standard A2 size envelope, and when it's opened, it pops up to be displayed perfectly. It's a design that's as fun for the recipient as it was for me to create. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to check out the playlist of my other interactive card tutorials for more inspirations. And of course, all the supplies that I used to create this project will be linked down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you so much for crafting along with me today. I hope this card inspires you to pull out your supplies and create something magical too. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.